great stories of the afterlife, we will find not just the beliefs of a people, but the deepest truths about the lives they were living, and what they feared, and what they truly desired. When faced with the brutal realities of our existence, the human mind often turns to one simple hope: that the next world will be a better one, a place where our struggles finally end. But what if that hope manifests as something extreme? A world where every hardship, every moment of scarcity is not just relieved, but is completely and utterly inverted. This is the psychology of the extreme. The stories we tell about what comes next, they are almost always the perfect psychological inversion of the lives we're living right now. For a people defined by a life of extreme heat and scarcity, the afterlife becomes the ultimate oasis. In the Islamic tradition, heaven, known as Jannah, is described in vivid sensory detail as a lush perpetual garden, a place where the sound of flowing water is constant and beautiful, where rivers of pure, cool water, of milk, of honey, and of an unintoxicating wine run freely. The promise of abundant food is a central feature. With every fruit and meat a soul could desire, the constant threat of hunger is replaced with an eternal feast, and the punishing sun is replaced with cool, eternal shade. This is the physical perfection, a life of effortless comfort. But the psychological promise goes deeper. It is also the ultimate fulfillment of status and companionship. The most obedient are promised the company of beautiful companions, the Hor al-Ain, maidens created perfectly, described as virgins with large, beautiful eyes, untouched by man or jinn, and promised in numbers as great as 72. This promise speaks to a deep human longing for beauty and perfect companionship. And to serve every need, there are eternal youths, the Gelman, plural for Gulam, who are created to be eternally obedient servants, a fulfillment of a life free from labor and want, a world where every whim is attended to. The promise of Jannah is a perfect, inverse reflection of a harsh and unforgiving world. A world where your status is eternally secured, where every need is met, and where companionship is perfect and lasting. But the Islamic hell, Jahannam, is the direct and psychological opposite of heaven. A torment for every one of the five senses, an eternal desert with no shade and no water. In Jahannam, the damned are dressed in garments of fire and bound with chains and shackles. Their torment is total. The fire is described as being 70 times hotter than earthly fire, and the skin of the damned is peeled off and replaced, so the sensation of torment is felt eternally. The promised food is from the zaqqum tree, a tree whose fruit resembles the heads of devils, and whose pulp will boil in your belly like molten lead. The damned are forced to eat it until they are full, and to drink only of boiling, fetid water that will scald the face, melt the intestines, and cause them to feel eternal thirst. It is a psychological reflection of a people's greatest fears, a world where the very things needed for survival, water, food, and shade, are turned into instruments of eternal punishment. The world of the Norse, a land of long winters and constant conflict, offered a different set of fears, and therefore a different kind of afterlife, the ultimate reward. Valhalla is a warm feasting hall, roofed with glistening shields and spears for rafters, a grand, well-lit place where the fear of cold and hunger is completely erased. Here, the chosen warriors are served meat from the magical boar Rimnir, which is cooked every day and comes back to life, and they drink endless streams of mead that flows from the udders of the goat Hythrun. But its psychological promise is even greater. The warriors spend their days in glorious combat, fighting and dying, only to be resurrected each night to feast again. This is not senseless violence, it is a purposeful existence, training for Ragnarok. The final battle at the end of the world. Valhalla is a place that validates their life's purpose and ensures their sacrifice was not in vain, a reward that perfectly reflects a culture's deepest values. Its punishment. Helheim is not fire, but an eternity of cold and utter monotony. The journey to Helheim is a long, bleak road that leads down into a dark, foggy realm, a place where a giantess guards a bridge that crosses the icy river. The souls there exist in a state of aimless boredom, a profound psychological horror. There is no combat, no glory, and no feast, for a culture that valued action and a warrior's death above all else. Their punishment is an eternal life of being nothing. Their souls are relegated to a realm that denies them all that gave their life meaning. The ultimate torment is not pain, but an existence that is utterly pointless, the final note in a story that demanded an epic ending. But not every afterlife is a psychological mirror of a physical world. For the ancient Egyptians, a civilization built on the predictable cycles of the Nile, the answer to death wasn't a promise of pleasure or a threat of pain. It was a highly ritualized process, a triumph of order over the chaos of non-existence. The soul was not a single entity, it was a complex collection of parts. The Ba, or personality, the Ka, or life force, and the Eb, the physical heart which held the record of a person's life. After a proper burial and the 70-day mummification process, a soul began its journey through the underworld, the Juat, guided by the words and spells of the Book of the Dead. The final and most terrifying moment was the weighing of the heart ceremony in the Hall of Two Truths. The great god Anubis, with the head of a jackal, would carefully place the deceased's heart on a scale. On the other side of the scale was the feather of Maat, the goddess of truth and cosmic order, before the great lord of the underworld, Osiris. The scribe god Thoth would record the verdict. A pure heart, one that lived a life of balance and righteousness, would be lighter than the feather. But a heart heavy with sin would tip the scale, to be immediately devoured by the monstrous Amet, a beast with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. This afterlife was not based on extremes of reward and punishment, but on a perfect administrative process, a belief that if you lived a life of balance and ritual, you could navigate even the chaos of death. The human mind, in its profound quest for meaning and an understanding of suffering, has also conceived of an afterlife that transcends the notion of a singular destination. Instead, it envisions an endless, intricate journey. In Hinduism and Buddhism, the individual soul, or Atman in Hinduism, and a constantly changing stream of consciousness in Buddhism, is caught within a vast and often painful cycle of birth, death, and rebirth known as samsara. This is not a random process. It is governed by the intricate and unwavering law of karma. Every action, every word, every thought, both positive and negative, creates karmic residue that shapes the conditions of future lives. A life lived with compassion, selflessness, and righteousness accumulates positive karma, potentially leading to a birth in a higher realm or a more fortunate existence. Conversely, actions driven by ego, greed, and harm generate negative karma, potentially resulting in a birth in a lower realm or a life filled with suffering. The ultimate aim within this cyclical existence is not to reach a static heaven, but to attain liberation from the cycle itself. In Hinduism, this liberation is called moksha, the transcendence of the individual self and union with the ultimate reality, Brahman. In Buddhism, the goal is nirvana, the cessation of suffering, and the extinguishing of the flames of desire and ego that fuel the cycle of rebirth. The psychology behind this intricate system is deeply rooted in the human yearning for perfect and eternal justice. It offers a profound explanation for the inequalities and suffering observed in the world, suggesting that these are not arbitrary, but the consequences of past actions stretching across countless lifetimes. It instills a powerful sense of personal responsibility, emphasizing that each individual holds the key to their own liberation through their present actions and intentions. The concept of samsara also provides a unique form of psychological comfort. The knowledge that death is not an absolute end, but a transition, an opportunity for continued growth and the eventual resolution of all karmic debts. The promise that every act of kindness, every moment of suffering, contributes to an ultimate balance and the potential for ultimate peace. In stark contrast to the intricate cycles and elaborate journeys of other afterlives, the ancient Greeks, a civilization that so profoundly shaped our understanding of the world, conceived of a realm beyond death that was surprisingly muted. Their afterlife, known as Hades, was not a vibrant tapestry of rewards and punishments for most souls. It was a realm ruled by the stern god Hades and his queen Persephone, a place where the vast majority of the deceased led a listless existence in the gloomy asphodel meadows. They were pale shades, mere phantoms of their former selves, their memories fading like whispers on the wind. There was little joy, little sorrow, just an unending, uneventful existence. The psychology behind this somewhat bleak vision is fascinating. It suggests a culture that placed immense value on the here and now, on mortal achievement and the glory attained in life. The true heaven of the Greeks was not necessarily a divine reward, but the Elysian fields, a paradise reserved for heroes, the exceptionally virtuous and those favored by the gods. Reaching this blessed realm was exceedingly rare. For the vast majority, the underworld was simply the inevitable conclusion, a stark reality that perhaps served to heighten the appreciation for mortal existence. Even the punishments in the Greek underworld, meted out in the deepest pit of Tartarus, were reserved for truly egregious offenses against the gods or fundamental moral laws. Figures like Sisyphus, eternally rolling a boulder uphill, and Tantalus, forever thirsting for unreachable water, serve as potent reminders of the consequences of hubris and disrespect towards the divine. These were not punishments designed for mass suffering, but specific iconic torments for legendary wrongdoers. This vision of Hades, with its emphasis on a rather unremarkable existence for most, stands as a powerful psychological motivator. It suggests that the true meaning and value of life were to be found in the mortal realm, in striving for excellence, earning glory, and leaving behind a lasting legacy. The focus was not on a grand reward after death, but on the impact and memory one created while alive. Perhaps the ultimate psychological tool to make the most of the fleeting time they had under the sun. So, what do all of these afterlives truly have in common? A fiery hell and a cold hell, an administrative journey in an endless cycle, a promise of glory and a promise of nothingness. Despite their profound differences, they all serve a powerful, universal purpose. They are the stories we tell ourselves to cope with our deepest psychological need. The first is a universal need for justice. The Islamic promise of a torturous Jahannam ensures that no wrong goes unpunished. The Norse afterlife guarantees that the cowardly will not enter Valhalla. The Egyptian ritual of weighing the heart provides a cosmic administrative reckoning for every life. And the Hindu and Buddhist law of karma ensures that every action, every thought, finds its ultimate consequence, a belief that a moral order exists, that no injustice goes unanswered, and that all suffering will eventually be reconciled. The second is a need for legacy. For the ancient Greeks, with their dim underworld, The only true immortality was in the deeds and stories left behind in the world of the living. In Valhalla, the reward was not a tranquil peace, but an eternal affirmation of a warrior's glory. These afterlives psychologically compel us to live a life of meaning, to create a story that will outlast our mortal bodies. And perhaps most profoundly, the third is a need for reconciliation. The promise of Jannah is not just a garden, but the company of perfect companions, a profound emotional comfort that we will not be alone, that we will be reunited with those we have lost, that we will be at peace. In moksha and nirvana, reconciliation is with the self, a release from the cycle of suffering, a final perfect peace. These afterlives, so different on the surface, are all answers to the same fundamental questions. They are a powerful psychological toolkit designed to help us face the profound terror of death. These elaborate realms and ancient promises, they are more than just stories. They are humanity's greatest masterpieces of denial. Each one is an admission, an acknowledgement of what a culture truly feared. A desert people feared thirst, so they created a paradise of endless rivers. A warrior people feared a meaningless death, so they forged a hall of eternal glory. They all point to a singular universal truth, that our beliefs about death are not about what comes next, but about the life we are living right now. So perhaps, the story we tell ourselves about death is the truest reflection of our greatest fear and our deepest hope. A final story that gives our lives a purpose we couldn't otherwise see. So, what does your story say about you? About the life you are living and the life you wish to have lived?